I asked my
We're coming
Apache
for you,
neighbor to be my
cowboy.
fake
You need
girlfriend
to
when
be
I met
gone
my
by
ex.
sundown.
She did hesitate. He had not planned to stay long in his hometown. Just a few days, he told himself. Long enough to check on the old house, finish some paperwork, and then leave again. This place held too many memories, and most of them were not kind. Still, life had a way of pulling him back when he least expected it. He parked his truck near the small grocery store at the edge of town. The same store had been there since he was a child. The paint was faded, the sign slightly crooked, but it was familiar enough to make his chest feel tight. He sat in the truck for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, reminding himself to breathe. He was not the same man who had left years ago. He had survived harder things since then. When he finally stepped out, the dry air hit his face. The sun was bright, and the sound of gravel under his boots echoed too loudly in his ears. Inside the store, not much had changed. The same narrow aisles, the same shelves stacked with everyday items. He picked up a few things he needed, keeping his head down, hoping to get in and out without trouble. That hope did not last. As he turned down the last aisle, he saw her. At first, his mind refused to accept it. It felt like seeing a ghost. She stood near the counter, laughing softly with the cashier, her hair pulled back the way she used to wear it. Older, yes, but still unmistakably her. His ex. The woman who had once promised forever and then left when life stopped being easy. His heart began to pound. His hands went cold. All the confidence he had built over the years seemed to disappear in seconds. Memories rushed back without permission. Late nights, shared dreams the moment she told him she was leaving. The words she had said still lived somewhere deep inside him. "I need something more stable," she had said. "I can't live like this." He had tried to stop her, tried to explain, tried to be enough. It had not worked. Now she was here just a few feet away, unaware of his presence. Or maybe she was aware. Maybe she had already seen him. The thought made his stomach twist. He thought about leaving everything behind and walking out, but his legs would not move. Fear and pride held him in place. He did not want her to see him as the same broken man she had walked away from. He did not want that look of quiet judgment in her eyes. He glanced around, searching for something, anything, that could help him escape the moment. That was when he noticed his neighbor. She stood near the entrance, holding a small basket, carefully checking labels on canned goods. She was Apache, from the nearby land, someone he had seen many times but never really known well. They shared a fence line and occasional greetings. Sometimes she helped him when his truck broke down. Sometimes he helped her with heavy work. Their conversations were simple and respectful. She carried herself with a calm strength, not loud, not demanding attention. Just steady, like someone who knew who she was and did not need to prove it. Seeing her gave him a strange sense of relief, even though he did not yet know why. Then it happened. His ex turned and saw him. Their eyes met, and the past slammed into him all at once. Her smile faded into surprise, then something unreadable. She looked him up and down, taking in his worn jacket, his dusty boots. He imagined what she might be thinking. He imagined her comparing this version of him to the life she now had. She started walking toward him. Panic took over. His mind raced. He did not have time to think clearly. He only knew one thing: he could not face her like this. Not alone. Not unprepared. Before he could stop himself, he turned and walked quickly toward his neighbor. She looked up, surprised to see him approaching so suddenly. Her eyes widened slightly, but she did not step back. In a low voice, barely above a whisper, he spoke. "Please," he said, "I need a favor right now." She studied his face. She saw the tension in his jaw, the fear he was trying to hide. She did not interrupt him or rush him. She waited. "I just ran into my ex," he continued, his voice tight. Can you pretend to be my girlfriend, just for a moment? I know it's a lot to ask. You can say no." He felt foolish as soon as the words left his mouth. The request sounded desperate, childish even. He expected her to laugh or look offended. He was already preparing himself for rejection, but she did not do either. She looked past him briefly, noticing the woman approaching from behind. Then she looked back at him, her expression softened, not with pity but with understanding. "Okay," she said simply. That was it. No questions, no hesitation. Before he could react, she stepped closer to him and gently took his hand. Her grip was firm and warm, grounding him in a way he had not expected. She leaned in slightly, resting her shoulder against his arm as if she had done it 1,000 times before. "You okay?" she asked quietly, just for him. He nodded, even though he was not sure if it was true. By the time his ex reached them, the scene had already changed. He was no longer standing alone, exposed and unsure. He was standing beside a woman who looked comfortable at his side, who belonged there. His ex stopped a short distance away. Her eyes flicked to their joined hands, then to his neighbor's face. Surprise crossed her features, followed by curiosity. "I didn't know you were back," his ex said, forcing a polite smile. "Just for a few days," he replied. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. His neighbor smiled warmly at the ex, the kind of smile that was friendly but confident. "I'm glad I caught him," she said casually. "He promised he wouldn't forget the coffee this time." She squeezed his hand slightly, a small gesture that spoke volumes. The ex laughed, but it sounded thin. She asked a few questions, the kind people ask when they are trying to hide discomfort. How long had they been together? How was life treating him? He answered as best he could, but it was his neighbor who set the tone. She spoke with ease, never overdoing it, never making it obvious they were pretending. She talked about simple things, shared routines, small moments that made their connection feel real. The ex listened, her smile growing tighter with each passing second. Whatever she had expected to see when she recognized him, this was not it. After a few minutes, she checked her phone and excused herself. She wished them well and walked away, leaving behind a strange silence. He did not realize how tense he had been until she was gone. His shoulders slumped slightly, and he let out a slow breath. Only then did he notice that his neighbor was still holding his hand. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, embarrassed. "I shouldn't have put you in that position." She let go gently but did not step away. "It's okay," she replied. "You looked like you needed help." They stood there for a moment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the store. Something had shifted, though neither of them fully understood it yet. What started as an act had stirred emotions he thought were long buried. As they walked toward the counter together, he felt something unexpected rising inside him. Not relief alone, but gratitude. And maybe, beneath that, the first hint of something else. Something real was beginning, even if he was not ready to admit it yet. They walked out of the store together, the door creaking softly behind them. The sun felt warmer now, or maybe he was just more aware of everything around him. His heart was still beating fast, but the panic had eased. He glanced at his neighbor, unsure of what to say next. What he had asked of her was not small, and yet she had stepped in without making him feel weak. They reached the parking lot and stopped near his truck. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was not awkward, just thoughtful. "Thank you," he said finally. "I really mean it." She nodded, her expression calm. "You don't have to explain," she said. "I could see you were uncomfortable." He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Still, I didn't expect you to say yes so quickly." She shrugged lightly. "Sometimes people just need someone to stand beside them." Her words stayed with him. They were simple, but they carried weight. He realized that in all the years he had known her as a neighbor, he had never truly seen her. Not like this. They parted ways there, each heading to their own place. But as he drove home, his thoughts kept drifting back to her steady presence, to the way she had looked at him without judgment. That night, sleep did not come easily. His mind replayed the encounter with his ex, the surprise in her eyes, the questions she asked. But more than that, he kept remembering the feel of his neighbor's hand in his, the quiet strength she carried. The next morning, he stepped outside early, hoping the cool air would clear his head. The land around his house was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every sound feel important. Birds called in the distance. A soft breeze moved through the trees. As he walked toward the fence line, he saw her. She was already outside, tending to a small garden near her home. She wore simple clothes, her hair tied back, focused on her work. For a moment, he watched from a distance, unsure if he should approach. He did not want to make things strange, but she looked up and noticed him. "Morning," she said with a small smile. "Morning," he replied, feeling oddly nervous. They stood there, separated by the fence like they always had, but something had changed. The easy distance they once kept felt thinner now. "I hope yesterday didn't cause you any trouble," he said. "It didn't," she replied. "You okay now?" He nodded. "Yeah, better than I expected." She wiped her hands on her jeans and leaned against the fence. "That kind of surprise can shake you," she said. "Old memories have a way of doing that." He was struck by how easily she understood. He found himself opening up without planning to. "I thought I was past it," he admitted. "I've built a life away from here. Or at least I thought I had. Seeing her made me realize I still carry some of it." She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she spoke gently. "Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning how to stand again when the past shows up." Her words stayed with him. He wondered where she had learned to speak like that. Life, he guessed. Later that day, he found a reason to knock on her door. He told himself it was just to return a tool he had borrowed weeks ago, but deep down, he knew it was more than that. She invited him in. Her home was modest, clean, filled with small personal touches. Handmade items, family photos, signs of a life built with care. It felt warm in a way his own place did not. They sat at the table, talking over coffee. The conversation flowed easily, moving from everyday things to stories about the land, about growing up, about change. He learned that she had lived here most of her life, that she valued her independence, her roots, that she had faced her own share of loss and disappointment but carried it quietly. "I don't like wasting energy on people who don't choose me," she said at one point. "Life's too short for that." The words hit him harder than she probably realized. As the days passed, they found themselves spending more time together. Sometimes it was practical, helping fix a fence, sharing a meal. Other times it was just sitting outside, watching the sky change colors as the sun went down. He noticed how she never tried to impress anyone. How she spoke honestly, even when it was uncomfortable. How she laughed softly, not often but sincerely. One evening, as they sat on his porch, the conversation turned back to his ex. "She looked surprised," he said. "I think she expected me to still be stuck." "And were you?" she asked. He thought about it. "I was for a long time, but not anymore," she nodded, satisfied. "That's what matters." He hesitated, then asked, "Why did you help me that day? You didn't even ask for an explanation." She looked out at the horizon before answering. "Because I've been on the other side of that feeling, being judged, being underestimated. I know what it's like to need someone just once to step in." Her honesty made something tighten in his chest. He realized that what she had done was not about pretending. It was about respect. The next time he ran into his ex, it was deliberate. She had reached out, asking to talk. He agreed, not because he wanted answers, but because he wanted closure. They met in a public place. The conversation was polite, careful. She asked about his life. He answered without bitterness. "I didn't think you'd stay here," she said. "I didn't think so either," he replied. She hesitated. "You seem different." "I am," he said simply. When it ended, he felt lighter. Not because he had proven anything, but because he no longer needed to. That evening, he told his neighbor about it. She listened, then smiled. "I'm glad," she said. "Sounds like you stood your ground." He looked at her, really looked at her, and realized how much she had become part of his days. "What we did that day," he said slowly. "It started as pretending, but it changed something for me." She met his gaze, calm as always. "For me too," she admitted. There was no rush. No promises made. just an understanding forming between them, built on honesty and quiet trust. As the night grew darker, he felt a sense of peace he had not known in a long time. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer facing life alone. The days that followed passed in a way he had not expected. They were calm, steady, almost gentle. There was no rush, no pressure, just a quiet understanding growing between them. He woke each morning feeling lighter, as if some heavy weight he had carried for years had finally loosened its grip. He noticed how often he looked toward her place now, not in a restless way but with curiosity, with care. Sometimes she was outside early, walking along the fence line, checking things the way she always did. Other times she appeared later in the day, moving with the same calm purpose. Every small interaction felt meaningful. One afternoon, he saw her struggling with a broken gate. Without thinking, he walked over and offered to help. They worked side by side, passing tools, exchanging small smiles. There was comfort in the silence between them, no need to fill it with words. When they finished, she wiped her hands and thanked him. "You always show up," she said. The words surprised him. He had never thought of himself that way. Not before. As they sat down to rest, she began to talk about her family, about the land and how it held memories that could not be separated from who she was. She spoke of her elders, of lessons passed down quietly through action rather than words. "Where I come from," she said, "you don't rush bonds, you let them prove themselves." He listened carefully, respecting the weight behind her words. He realized that what they were building did not need a name yet. It simply needed time. Later that week, they attended a small community gathering. He had almost said no, afraid of standing out, afraid of questions. But she encouraged him, telling him it would be good to be around people again. At the gathering, he stayed close to her at first. She introduced him simply, without labels or explanations. He felt accepted without being examined. People greeted him kindly, asked him about his work, his plans. No one looked at him like he did not belong. He noticed how others looked at her with respect. She was not just a neighbor. She was someone people trusted, someone whose presence carried meaning. As the sun dipped lower, music played softly. Children laughed nearby. The world felt full in a way he had forgotten. At one point, someone asked how they knew each other. She answered honestly. "We're neighbors," she said. "We help each other." The simplicity of it felt right. That night, as they walked home together, he felt brave enough to share more of his past. He told her about the years after his breakup, the long hours of work, the mistakes, the loneliness he tried to ignore. "I thought being strong meant handling everything alone," he admitted. She shook her head gently. "Strength can also mean letting someone walk with you." Her words settled deep inside him. Not long after, his ex reached out again. This time, the message was different. There was uncertainty in it, a hint of regret. She wanted to meet to talk properly. He took his time before responding. When he did, he was clear but kind. He told her he wished her well, but he was no longer interested in reopening old doors. When he told his neighbor about it, she did not celebrate or judge. She simply nodded. "Sounds like you're choosing peace," she said. "Yes," he replied, "I am." The change in him was subtle but real. He began to sleep better. He laughed more easily. The sharp edges of his thoughts softened. One evening, she invited him to join her for dinner. The meal was simple, made with care. They talked about small things, about hopes, about the future without making promises. At the end of the night, as he stood to leave, he hesitated. "I don't want to assume anything," he said carefully. "But I want you to know that what we're building matters to me." She met his eyes. "It matters to me too." There was no need to rush. They both understood that. Days turned into weeks. Their connection deepened through shared effort, shared silence, shared understanding. They learned each other's rhythms, respected each other's boundaries. One afternoon, a sudden storm rolled in. The sky darkened quickly, rain falling hard. He saw her struggling to secure something outside and ran over without thinking. Together they worked quickly, laughing as the rain soaked them. When it was done, they stood there, breathless, rain dripping from their clothes. In that moment he felt something clear and strong. This was not pretend anymore. Later, sitting inside, wrapped in dry blankets, he spoke the truth he had been holding back. "I didn't plan for this," he said, "but I'm glad it's you." She smiled softly. "Sometimes the right things come without planning." That night, as he walked home under a clearing sky, he realized that the man who had once panicked in a grocery store was gone. In his place stood someone steady, someone learning to trust again. And whatever the future held, he knew he was ready to face it, this time not alone, but alongside someone who truly saw him. As time passed, the feeling between them became harder to ignore. It was no longer just comfort or friendship. There was a quiet depth to it, something steady and real, yet neither of them rushed to name it. They both understood that some things needed space to grow. One afternoon, he received a call that unsettled him. It was about unfinished business tied to his past, paperwork, responsibilities he had delayed for too long. The call reminded him that returning to his hometown had not only reopened old memories, but also old duties. He felt the familiar pressure building in his chest. He walked over to her place that evening, not because he needed advice, but because he needed honesty. She welcomed him in, sensing his unease. "You look troubled," she said, handing him a cup of tea. He sat down slowly. "I thought I had closed the door on my old life," he admitted, "but it feels like it's still following me." She listened, her attention fully on him. When he finished, she spoke carefully. "Sometimes the past doesn't want us back. Sometimes it just wants us to finish what we left undone." Her words made sense. They did not frighten him the way they once would have. Over the next few days, he worked through those responsibilities. It was tiring both mentally and physically, but each completed task brought a small sense of relief. Through it all, she remained quietly supportive. She did not hover or push. She simply checked in, offering help when needed. One evening after a long day, he joined her outside as the sky turned soft shades of orange and blue. The land felt peaceful, grounded. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you," he said. She looked at him, patient. "Go ahead." "Why did you stay?" he asked. "You could have stepped back at any time. This wasn't your burden." She took a moment before answering. "Because I believe in choosing people who show effort. You did, from the beginning." Her answer stayed with him. No one had ever explained care to him in such a simple way. Later that week, she invited him to a family gathering. He hesitated, unsure if he belonged there. She noticed his doubt. "You don't have to come if you're not ready," she said gently. "I want to," he replied, and he meant it. The gathering was warm and welcoming. He met people who shared stories, laughter, and quiet respect. No one questioned him. No one made him feel like an outsider. He felt something settle inside him, a sense of belonging he had not realized he was missing. As the evening went on, he saw her in a new light. Not just as his neighbor or the woman who had helped him once, but as someone deeply rooted, strong in ways that did not need words. On the way home, he spoke honestly. "Being there today, it meant more than I can say." She nodded. "I'm glad you came." A few days later, he ran into his ex one final time. The meeting was brief and calm. There was no tension, no longing, just two people acknowledging that their paths had gone in different directions. Walking away from that encounter, he felt free. Not because he had won anything, but because he no longer carried unanswered questions. That night, he sat with her under the stars. The air was cool, the world quiet. "I think I understand something now," he said. "What we started as pretending showed me what real support looks like." She smiled softly. "Truth has a way of showing itself." He turned to her. "I don't want to pretend anymore." She met his gaze, steady and sure. "Neither do I." There was no dramatic moment, no big declaration. Just two people choosing honesty, choosing to move forward with care. As the night deepened, he felt peace settle over him. The kind of peace that comes from acceptance, not just of others, but of oneself. He knew there were still challenges ahead. Life would not suddenly become easy, but he also knew he was no longer running from his past or hiding from his future. He was standing exactly where he needed to be, beside someone who had stepped in without hesitation and stayed. And that made all the difference. The days that followed felt different, as if the world had quietly shifted into a new place. Nothing dramatic happened overnight. There were no sudden changes, no grand promises, yet everything felt more solid, more honest. They continued their routines, but now there was a shared understanding beneath every moment. Mornings often began with a simple wave across the fence or a short walk together before the day grew busy. Even the smallest gestures carried meaning. He noticed how steady he felt now. The doubts that once followed him had grown quiet. He no longer replayed old conversations in his mind. He no longer wondered what he should have done differently. The past felt complete, finally placed where it belonged. One afternoon, he received news that required him to leave town again. Work opportunities were calling him back to the life he had built away from home. The thought of leaving felt heavier this time. That evening, he told her the truth. "I may have to go," he said. "Not forever." But for a while, she listened without reacting too quickly. When she spoke, her voice was calm. "You don't have to choose between your life and this," she said. "You just have to be honest about both." Her response surprised him. There was no fear in it, no demand, just trust. They talked long into the night, about distance, about patience, about how real connection did not disappear when tested by time or space. They agreed to move forward without forcing anything. In the days before he left, they spent time doing ordinary things. Fixing small problems around the property, sharing meals, sitting in silence when words felt unnecessary. On his last evening, they stood by the fence where so many of their conversations had begun. The sky was clear, stars bright above them. "I used to think strength meant standing alone," he said. "You showed me something different." She smiled gently. "And you reminded me that letting someone in doesn't mean losing yourself." When he left the next morning, it was not with regret, but with clarity. He knew where he belonged, even if he could not stay just yet. Time passed. They stayed in touch, checking in, sharing moments from their days. Distance tested their patience, but it never weakened their trust. If anything, it strengthened it. When he finally returned, months later, the reunion was quiet and sure. No hesitation, no doubt. Standing once again on that familiar land, he understood how much he had changed, how much they both had. What began as a simple act of kindness had grown into something lasting. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. He no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. He had found respect, understanding, and peace right where he least expected it. And this time, he knew he was home.